Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a congressional panel takes up the case of a Marine held in a Mexican prison since last March.
And the fate of the CEO and firm in charge of investing money for San Diego County's underfunded pension fund will be decided tomorrow. At issue, risky investment practices. I'm Peggy Pico with details on the controversy, plus our continuing coverage of the statewide plastic grocery bag ban, the potential impact to bag makers, grocery stores, and low-income consumers.
And a new report warns about a software program intended to keep kids safe on the internet. The report says it may be spyware instead. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. A hearing today in Washington focused on the plight of a Marine jailed in Mexico. Sergeant Andrew Tamarisi was arrested more than 6 months ago crossing the San Diego-Tijuana checkpoint with 3 loaded guns in his truck. His mother spoke to a House panel today hoping to put pressure on Mexico to release her son, who suffers from PTSD.
April 5th. Mom, I'm not going to make it through the night. Whatever you do not come down here to investigate. Do not come down here to ask questions. You will be killed as well.
A tearful Jill Tamarisi told a House Foreign Affairs subcommittee her son Andrew tried to commit suicide several days after being jailed in Mexico.
April 14th. Mom, I tried to kill myself because the guards and the inmates were going to rape, torture, and execute me for personal information. I needed to protect you.
She says this message came a week later.
Mom, it's been 25 days. I've been in 4-point chain restraint, spread eagle on a cot in the infirmary.
Her 26-year-old son, now a Marine reservist, was eventually moved to a prison in Tecate. Tamarisi claims he was headed to dinner in San Isidro 6 months ago when he mistakenly crossed the border with 3 guns he legally owned, but in violation of Mexican law. Tamarisi's lawyer says they've made a huge leap in securing his freedom, and both sides agree he suffers from PTSD and needs to get treatment in the U.S. A Mexican lawyer the family hired believes dismissal or acquittal could come within weeks.
These quotes, horrific in varying degrees for a mother, pale in comparison to Andrew's statement that my time in Mexico has been far worse than my 2 combat tours to Afghanistan.
Now, prosecutors in Mexico say his rights have been respected, and Tamarisi has been visited dozens of times by his lawyers, relatives, pastor, even members of Congress. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the military's health care system is just average, and he wants to see a plan for improving it within 45 days. Today, he released the findings of a review of the whole system, including the VA hospital in La Jolla. He says it found pockets of excellence, but also some gaps, and he wants a detailed plan for dealing with them. The review came in response to reports of long waits for patients at VA hospital in Phoenix. San Diego's district attorney is warning parents tonight about an internet safety software distributed by her office after a new report saying the software is actually unsafe, leaving computers open to hackers and identity thieves. The DA's office is one of hundreds of law enforcement agencies distributing the Computer Cop software. It's billed as a tool for parents to track their children's online activity, but the Electronic Frontier Foundation discovered Computer Cop uses a keylogger, a function that can transmit whatever you type over the internet without encryption. The DA says turning off the keylogger will keep the software secure. 2 degrees. That's what climate change policymakers around the world have long seen as a kind of safety zone. As long as global average temperatures don't rise above 2 degrees, we should be fine. But now, 2 San Diego researchers argue this goal is misguided. KPBS science reporter David Wagner joins us now to explain. David, what's wrong with this 2-degree warming goal?
Well, two San Diego scientists wrote an article published today in the journal Nature. They're arguing it's ultimately impossible for the world to meet this goal, and they say it's not even the best way to keep track of climate change right now. Over the past 16 years, we've actually seen global average temperatures stay more or less flat, but that's only because all this heat building up from greenhouse gases is currently trapped in the ocean. Now, they say that temperatures will spike again in the future when storm cycles in the Pacific Ocean unleash all that trapped heat. But for now, scientists say the hiatus in warming might be giving global leaders a false sense of security. And that's why we shouldn't focus so much on this 2-degree warming goal.
Do they have any goals to replace it?
They do. I spoke with one author, Charles Kennel. He's a former director of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And he says we need to start looking at an array of indicators, things like ocean heat content, like the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. Kennel told me we need to approach climate health more like how we approach human health.
When you go to the doctor and you get a checkup, you have your vital signs taken, one of which is the temperature. But the doctor looks at a lot of other things because your body is a complicated system. And climate scientists, doctors for the planet, look at a lot of things too because the climate is a complicated system.
Now, Kennel realizes this might give ammo to climate change deniers who say scientists are suddenly moving the goalposts. But he argues temperature goals aren't the best way to frame this conversation right now, and the world needs new targets.
KPBS science reporter David Wagner. Voters could eventually decide the fate of California's plastic bag ban if opponents collect more than 500,000 signatures within 90 days. That would put a repeal on the November 2016 ballot. Peggy Pico has a look at the impact of the first statewide ban on plastic bags.
California leads the nation in environmental issues, so it wasn't too much of a surprise when Governor Brown signed SB 270 into law, imposing the nation's first statewide ban on plastic bags in grocery stores. Here with the details are Roger Kuby with the Surfrider Foundation and Miro Kopik, marketing lecturer at San Diego State University. Welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, Roger, remind us of the basics of this plastic bag ban.
Sure. The basics of SB 270, the plastic bag ban, is effective July 1st of 2015. Plastic checkout bags will no longer be available in grocery stores and pharmacies. And then a year later, in July of 2016, it will also apply to smaller grocers, convenience stores, and liquor stores.
Now, among other groups, SeaWorld announced today that they support the ban because they say the environmental impact of plastic bags on sea turtles. They've actually documented quite a bit of that. So when it comes to plastic pollution impact on our beaches here in the San Diego region, what is it?
Well, SeaWorld speaks to one major concern with plastic pollution in our marine environment, and that's the impact that it has on marine animals. Whether it be through ingestion or entanglement, plastic pollution ultimately does kill marine life. So that's one issue. As far as our involvement in this, we do about 40 to 45 public beach cleanups every year in San Diego County. In 2013, we collected about 7,000 volunteers collected about 10,000 pounds of trash. About 70 to 80% of that is plastic pollution. So it's prevalent in our marine environment, has negative impacts on marine environment, and there's a number of other reasons why it should be removed.
Well, before we move forward, I want to let folks know that the American Progressive Bag Alliance, who represent the plastic bag industry, declined our request for this interview today. But Miro, they've said they'll attempt to get this ban on the ballot and have voters basically reverse it. They're citing things like job loss or a negative impact on retailers. Other cities already have bans in place and have for some time. What kind of impact as far as job loss or on the retailers do these types of bans have?
It always depends on the ban, but in this case, it would be fairly minimal. Most of the plastic bag manufacturers are based outside of California. As you mentioned, 127 cities and municipalities in the state of California already have a ban, and so it's really, and the amount of plastic bags that have been that are in use have declined 2/3 since the beginning of 2000. So Californians have already kind of led the way, and the impact at this point for those plastic bag manufacturers actually should be fairly minimal. Their real concern is what happens in the other 49 states.
And we're going to get to that, but I do want to ask you about the potential impact to consumers first, because there is a 10-cent charge, right,
Yes.
for using paper bags, or you're going to have to buy a reusable bag. Will it have an impact on, let's say, low-income shoppers?
Well, certainly, if you look at kind of average shopping patterns, if a family were to just use paper bags, that might result in spending, depending on how much they buy per week, between $25 and $80, $90 more a year just in paper bags. Certainly the reusable bags that they can bring in time and time again are much less expensive, and the retailers can actually lead the way here to promote this change and actually offer the bags for free if shoppers exceed their grocery purchase by a certain amount. So say spend $50, get a free bag. It's a great way. It's a win-win for those retailers. They're seen as being leading the way, and consumers will actually be able to benefit.
Well, and that brings me to a question, and I'll start with you, Roger, that basically, you know, I've already had people come up to me and say, how am I going to clean up after my dog's mess if you take away my plastic bags? How do you get people on board with the idea that using reusable bags or paper bags is a better choice?
I think it's really a change in perception for our society. I mean, we're a wasteful society. We love convenience. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for people from a convenience standpoint. So with the not having plastic checkout bags to use a second time for perhaps trash liners or to pick up your dog waste or pet waste, fortunately there are a lot of alternatives. For example, myself at home, I compost. I don't even use a liner in my trash bag. So that's hopefully a move that many more people will make. I have a dog as well, and I use more environmentally friendly bags than plastic bags.
And Mira, I'll ask you the same question. We'll have to end on this. How do you get people to buy into this? He mentioned using maybe some alternatives. You mentioned that grocery stores could help promote this. Is there anything else to kind of win the public over for this?
Well, you know, this is really actually a first baby step. You know, it's really these disposable bags that are given in grocery stores. It's not the sandwich bags. It's not the liners for trash bags. So it's not a big step. So it's going to make consumers feel a little bit better that they're doing something for the environment, because everyone knows that these bags can be unsightly on beaches, and everyone's seen them, or videos of large amounts of plastic bags in the ocean. So I think the consumers will buy in pretty quickly.
All right. We have a lot more on our website, kpbs.org. Mira Kopik and Roger Kuby, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks, Peggy.
The demographics are changing in Escondido in the North County, where the city's Latino population has grown from 23% in 1990 to nearly 50% today. In November, 2 Latinas are hoping to change the city's leadership and shake up its long-standing conservative politics. Fronteras reporter Joe Replogle has the story.
All the hands up. Okay, thank you everyone. Let's go walk.
Meet Consuelo Martinez, candidate for Escondido City Council, District 1. This former community organizer with the ACLU is running for the first time against an incumbent who's been in office since 2000. Martinez is a Democrat. Her opponent, Ed Gallo, is a Republican in a city where 40% of the voting population is registered Republican, compared to just 28% Democrat. But as she pounds the pavement talking to voters, Martinez has one distinct advantage. She speaks fluent Spanish in a district where more than half of the population is Latino. That demographic fact is by design. In 2011, several Escondido residents sued the city under the California Voting Rights Act. They said citywide voting to elect local public officials diluted the power of minority groups. Escondido settled the lawsuit in 2013 by agreeing to divide the city into 4 districts. Martinez says she hadn't planned on running, but someone had to oppose the incumbent, Gallo, a man she didn't feel represented her.
I waited and no one stepped up. And then I started feeling guilty, because I didn't want it to be, you know, another election where it was just a landslide and no one really challenged the incumbent. And if we want to talk about change, but we're not willing to put ourselves out there for it, then, you know, it's all talk.
What is change for Martinez?
Change to me is a place where people from the outside don't see us as a divided or a racist city. I don't believe that we are. I think that's just an image and a perception. That's like a branding problem that we have, and I think that needs to change because businesses don't want to come into places with a bad image.
That image, Martinez says, stems from Escondido's history of policies targeting immigrant residents living in the U.S. illegally. Perhaps the most notorious is the city's 2006 ordinance making it illegal to rent property to tenants without legal immigration status.
That correlation between crime, overcrowding, impacts on taxpayers, quality of life, and illegal immigration is without a doubt quite clear.
Escondido Mayor Sam Abed, who was then a city council member, supported the rental ban, as did Consuelo Martinez's current opponent, Ed Gallo. The city was forced to cancel the policy just 2 months after it passed in the face of a federal lawsuit brought by the ACLU and other groups. Gallo says it's all in the past.
I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forward. What you're talking about is something that happened eight years ago. And there are still people who like to stir the pot and bring that issue back. It's over with. It's history. The only good history does is to show us where we've been. I want to look at where we're going.
On the campaign trail, Gallo and Mayor Abed, who's also up for re-election, emphasized their successes in office, particularly their fiscal prudence and the city's economic performance. At the neighborhood level, Gallo says he's reaching out to his Latino constituents on common concerns.
Everybody wants a safe neighborhood. When I talk about the gangs, they all understand that. When I talk about the graffiti, they all understand that. Okay? When I talk about doing neighborhood improvements, they understand all that stuff.
Mayor Abed, a Republican and himself an immigrant, says he's modified his position on illegal immigration at the local level. Now he says that's a federal issue.
If you don't commit a crime, you are welcome to live in Escondido. You have to assimilate. You have to be successful like me. We have to grow as one community. Assimilation, unity, inclusiveness is the best way, and we have done that.
Abed is also defending his seat against a Latina woman, Olga Diaz. Diaz is Escondido's first ever Latina city councilwoman. It was the 2006 rental ban that got her into local politics.
I'm American born, raised, educated, productive. I owned a couple of businesses. You know, my husband's a cop. My kids are in public schools here. You know, I'm a normal person going about my life, and then suddenly I'm being told by angry people to go back to Mexico. And I thought, well, what happened? And it stemmed from some policies that were put forth by the city council. And then I thought, well, what does the city council do?
Diaz ran and lost in 2006. She won in 2008 and was reelected in 2012. Diaz prides herself on her due diligence on all city council matters. And she, like fellow Democrat Consuelo Martinez, says she wants to change the city's image.
Escondido needs to be thought of as a community that welcomes everyone. And everybody can raise a family here and grow their business here. It's not exclusive. It's everybody's town.
And you're just finishing that entire street, so you're going to go all this.
To win, both she and Martinez know they'll have to gain support well beyond the Latino community. Though Latinos make up nearly half of Escondido's population, they're less than 1/4 of registered voters. They'll also have to get Democrats to vote in an off-year election. But when the ballots are finally in, it may be Escondido's independent voters, who make up nearly 26% of the entire voting population, who point the direction for the city's political future. Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story. You can find all of our election coverage online at kpbs.org/election. The County Employee Retirement Association will consider firing its chief investment officer tomorrow after controversy over risky investments in the county's pension fund. Peggy Pico finds out what's at stake.
Chief Investment Officer Lee Partridge's job is on the line, and so is the county's $10 million annual pension fund contract with Salient Partners of Houston. Here with the details are my guests, Phil Blair, Executive Officer of Manpower San Diego, and Bill Scheffler, a consulting actuary, San Diego County Taxpayer Association board member, and who was formerly on the San Diego Pension Reform Committee after the pension system was underfunded. We invited Brian White, CEO of the County Retirement Association, but he was unavailable for this interview. Now, Bill, let's start with you. One of the major concerns over Partridge and Salient Partners' performance is that they're using this risky strategy called leverage investments. What is that strategy?
Well, leverage investments amounts to borrowing money that you don't have and then putting that money into the market. So you're actually risking money that you'll have to pay back. If you make losses, you still have to pay the money back with interest.
So that's why it's risky. As far as the brass tacks, what does that mean to the pension fund in San Diego? How much are they actually borrowing and how much is at risk?
Well, it's unclear to me exactly how much Partridge has proposed that they put at risk. They're talking about only doing 25% of the portfolio, which would be $2.5 billion, I'm sorry, plus whatever leverage is on top of that, which could be another $2.5 billion.
Okay, so about $5 billion. Now, Phil, do you support the idea of using leveraged investments to try to make up or try to improve the funding of the pension system?
Well, I think any time, Peggy, you can borrow at 3 or 4% and have a 13% return is a really good idea. But the issue is the beneficiaries of the pension plan have got to be on board and support that much risk. It is risky, yes, but is it a manageable, comfortable risk, or is it out of the comfort zone for the members? And I think the pensioners need to be comfortable with any decision. They might want to go extremely conservative, but nobody's asking their opinion, and that's where I think we need to make the changes.
And Bill, as far as who's making these decisions, what qualifies the County Retirement Board to make investment decisions, one, including the contract and whether to terminate Lee Partridge?
Well, the composition of the Retirement Board is set by state law. The state law only requires that 3 members of the 9-member board have any substantial financial expertise at all. All the others are either management employees or union elected officials. As far as who has the power to hire and fire, the county supervisors have the right to approve Lee Partridge's salary. But as far as hiring and firing, the board, that is the pension board, has the right to make hiring and firing decisions. Of course, if the supervisors don't approve his pay package, he would probably quit.
Okay, and speaking of county supervisors, Diane Jacob, who is on a retirement board member, she's critical of this $10 million, I should say potential $10 million contract with Partridge and his firm, because she's saying it's not worth the cost. Could pay up to $10 million, and we're not getting a good return on our investment. So I'll start with you, Bill. Do you agree with that? Do you think we're paying this person and this firm too much money?
We're paying them more than twice as much as we're paying the City of San Diego. And over the last 3 years, the City of San Diego's portfolio has outperformed the counties. So, yes, you're paying much more than the city would, and you're getting less return.
Phil, do you agree with that?
It's hard to argue with that. You're paying more and getting less return. I mean, that's a pretty obvious decision. And I think Mr. Partridge's challenge tomorrow is to explain how that's going to change and explain the past, because maybe there were extenuating circumstances. But it's very hard to argue with what Bill says in that case, that there may need to be a change if he can't explain why that happened.
What do you think there would be grounds for terminating Lee?
Too high expenses and too low a return. I mean, he's a consultant like every other consultant. You're as good as your last return, and that's a reality of that. Remember, we're not firing employees. This is a consultant that's hired to do a job, and if he's doing the job, great, keep him another year or two. If he's not doing the job you want, then replace him with somebody who will do better.
Do you have an opinion on it?
From the explanation I've heard, he should go. I mean, lower return, higher expense. Those don't make sense to me.
And Bill, who's on the hook for the county pension fund if it loses a lot of money based on these investments?
The county is. The county, the employer is. And the taxpayers for the county are, not the employees.
So not the employees, it would be county taxpayers via the county.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are out of time. We have a lot more on our website, kpbs.org. Phil Blair and Bill Scheffler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, we travel to Rhode Island for a look at one of the most colorful characters in American politics, back on the campaign trail. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Word the folks building a desalination plant up in Carlsbad say it's now 65% complete and should start delivering water in about a year. The Poseidon Water Project will be the biggest desal plant in the Western Hemisphere, and it's eventually expected to produce 50 million gallons of water a day. A vacant lot in the East Village downtown is getting a major upgrade. About a year ago, a group of architecture students had an idea to temporarily lease a vacant lot from the city of San Diego and turn it into a park. Their idea became reality today with a groundbreaking ceremony at Park and Market Streets downtown, a few blocks north of Petco Park. One of the former students says it fills a need in downtown.
In the middle of East Village, you see a lot of high-rises, you see a lot of residential, but not a lot of public parks or a lot of urban parks specifically. So our vision and goal was to create something new, something different, something for the community, and something we could all enjoy.
The park includes a dog run, event space, and a beer garden. It was designed to be set up quickly, so it should be open by December. We're looking at a mild Santa Ana headed our way, expected to heat things up for San Diego. Coastal temperatures will be in the mid-80s tomorrow, getting up to 90 by Friday with a slight cool down on Saturday there. Inland valleys will be toasty in the 90s for the next few days, and a heat advisory goes into effect on Friday. The mountain area will be cool, really the cool spot in the county, upper 70s to low 80s. And for the desert, mid-90s tomorrow, climbing back to the triple digits on Friday. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.